Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. There are 5 days until November 7th. This week, we are looking at the Lieutenant Governor debate. Doug is going to do a deep dive into Robbie Mills, that unsavory character who got stomped by Jacqueline Coleman earlier this week. We're going to talk a little bit about some craft, coal, cash contributions. And then we got an interview with two kick-ass members of Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, Kenneth Williamson and Kenny Jenkins, get their report on the work that KFTC is doing to help our state improve its electoral outcomes next week. 5 days. Then we're going to check in with Adrielle Camuel, who is running in the special election for the 93rd House District. We're going to meet her over in the campaign corner to hear how the campaign is going. And then finally, we're going to close out with a call to action. But first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? Are you sick of the political ads yet? Who's softer on crime? It's amazing how many ads are just really accusing one or the other of being soft. Everyone apparently is soft on crime. All of the candidates for every position, from ag commissioner on up, apparently they're all soft on crime, is what I'm learning from the ads that I've been watching. We're also learning that Andy Beshear is Joe Biden's running mate, and that they're in cahoots to turn your kid transgender. Andy Beshear hates churches. Folks, these ads have one goal. They want to convince you to stay home instead of supporting the candidate that you were leaning towards. This is not exactly a great strategy for our democracy. And that's why Progress Kentucky is very excited to be a part of the Kentucky Future Project, to build that political coalition of new voters, of progressive voters, and non-white voters who can kind of come together to make our Commonwealth better. We are working with great groups like Planned Parenthood, Hood to the Holler, many others to turn out the new Kentucky majority, achieve those electoral outcomes that we really want to see for a Commonwealth that's moving forward, not backward. So if you want to support those efforts, please make a donation. Head to our secure ActBlue website, $5, $50, $500. It all adds up, and it's going to give us the resources we need to make a positive difference over the next 5 days. All right, so let's check in with our co-host. Let us know who you are, where you are, and what does your protest sign say today, right? Protest sign. Why do we ask for a protest sign as a kind of little entry icebreaker? Because we are not some like talking heads show on the interwebs. We are a digital demonstration for a more progressive Kentucky, folks. And if you're going to show up at a demonstration, you should bring a protest sign. So I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg. Beautiful, beautiful deed-restricted community, full of vinyl siding in the outskirts of Lexington. And I guess my sign is actually, I'm pulling a card out of the Doug playbook. And I am wearing my sign. My sign says, can you see this? Can you see this? My sign says, Andy for Kentucky. It's not just a catchy song by NATO. It's also a shirt that I could buy on the Andy Beshear website. So I'm all in for Andy. Hope you are too. If you're not, why don't you just actually change the YouTube channel or whatever? Because I don't want to talk to you. If you're an undecided voter, you haven't made up your mind, what's wrong with you? And how did you find us? So at any rate, now let's turn to my co-host, the ever-prepared Doug Price.
Oh, my goodness. I used to be a Boy Scout, and Boy Scout, one of the tenets was be prepared. So maybe that has stayed with me. I'm wearing a little bit of a sign, but also I have another sign I'm going to hold up that says, go vote. Don't stay home. Be engaged. People, we have to vote. Oh, I forgot where I'm from and all that stuff. I didn't want Aaron to think that I was going to skip over the fact that I'm going to talk about Cynthiana, Harrison County. In Cynthiana, on November 3rd, 4th, and 10th, and 11th, the Ross Theater is putting on a live play titled The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. So my wife and I are going on November 3rd. So if you want to check into it, just type in Ross Theater, Cynthiana, Kentucky, and come visit Cynthiana. Back to you, Aaron.
Shakespeare in Cynthiana. I tell you what, it is the pinnacle of culture, in Cynthiana. So Doug, thank you so much for putting in a plug. It'd been a minute since I'd heard much positive about Cynthiana. I was wondering if you'd cooled to the community, or if just there wasn't much going on there, or maybe the Chamber of Commerce got a hold of you and said, "Hey, Doug, we don't need the help." I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I appreciate it.
Certainly.
All right, so it's just the two of us tonight. Usually we have a third co-host, but I'm just going to give a quick shout out, Kimberly Cecil Jones, leaving us in the lurch because apparently hanging out with the governor is cooler than hanging out with us. I don't know. So I know there's a lot of things going on right now. There's a cool bus event in Louisville, which is fantastic. We've got Ginger with us, fantastic, from Western Kentucky, Hopkins County. I know a bit about Hopkins County. And her sign says Daniel Cameron, wrong for Tucky. A lot of E's there. I'll be honest. I know a little bit about Western Kentucky because I have been to Hopkins County, but I don't know what Tucky is. So is that a city?
That's just saying Kentucky in a very
Tucky.
drawl.
Oh, Kentucky. Jeez, yikes. And then Sandy Downs is the last poor York. I don't know if that's his protest sign or if he's feeling the vibe from Cynthiana's culture. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the news stories because we do have three people we're going to talk to over the course of this show. So, Doug, if we get through the news quicker, it won't just be you and I anymore, and people will have a reprieve from just you and I giving them the show.
Well, I understand that, but I have to jump in here. I grew up in Hopkins County. We'll have to talk about that sometime. I want to know, were you in jail or a political event or what was it? So
yeah, we will catch up on Hopkins County in the future.
Okay. All right. Tonight, my article is in the form of news and commentary and includes a parting comment from our very own Nima Brewer. I watched the one and only Lieutenant Governor candidate debate between Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman and Senator Robbie Mills. First, let me state that I am not a fan of Mills. We emailed back and forth on a little ditty I wrote, and either my communication skills are deficient or his understanding skills are non-existent. That's a personal observation. Let's start with why Mills was chosen to be Cameron's running mate. I would love to be an insider and be able to find out the why Mills was chosen. Also, I wonder how many phone calls it took to find someone who was willing to run with Cameron. Perhaps since he supports vouchers, is a staunch defender of coal, is anti-trans, and or had close ties to Joe and Kelly Craft, did that play a role? Was he selected due to his ability to raise money in the Henderson area? Well, in the latest Kentucky Registry of Election Finance report, Cameron received less than $1,000 from three folks, and one of those was indirectly my boss at one time. From the Kentucky Lantern, throughout the debate, Coleman, who was elected to her position with Beshear in 2019, repeated much of what the governor has said while running for re-election and highlighted the administration's support for public education and accomplishments in economic development. On the other side, Mills, who is from Henderson in Western Kentucky, reflected Cameron's plans, such as working closely with the state legislature to enact conservative policies and catching students up from learning loss experienced during the coronavirus pandemic. They discussed education, energy, public safety, and more during the debate. Here are some of the highlights from the debate. Mills seemingly is a master of several things. He talked about education in restaurant terms, referring to his suggestions as items from the menu, like you can order those things up. Also, he stated that if Cameron was elected, the General Assembly would help him pass bills. Seemingly, the Republican-controlled legislature only wants to work with a Republican governor. But actually, they work for the people and not a certain set of we the people. They work for all of us. Was he selected because of his oratory skills? I would suggest watching the replay of the KET debate, and your answer should be very apparent. Here's a link to recommend a reading from the Louisville Courier Journal on who is Robbie Mills. He sponsored the 2022 legislation to ban transgender girls and women from playing on men's sports teams. He sponsored a bill to make hazing a Class D felony, a bill to prohibit schools from deducting union dues from paychecks, and he passed legislation that made it more difficult for utility companies to shut down coal-fired power plants. And apparently he is also a climate specialist or a scientist, maybe even. Here's a quote. I believe that there are effects that industry puts forward that could raise the temperature, but it's not as large of a raise as they're talking about. So in my opinion, he is either ignorant or only wanting to protect the coal industry. Perhaps this is a good time to report that Joe and Kelly Craft donated $2,000 each to Senator Mills in 2022, and Joe gave an additional $2,000 to the Henderson County Republican Party. I want to end with trying to answer the why he was selected to be Cameron's running mate. My best guess is that Mills is from coal country and may help Cameron with the Western Kentucky vote, as he represents Henderson, Hopkins, Union, and Webster. Gaining votes in those counties are important in the overall election landscape. Plus, I guess he may have some great contacts within the Republican-controlled legislature. Lastly, when talking about this debate, perhaps Nima said it best. For those of you who have watched our show, Nima is one of us. From X, formerly known as Twitter, this is what Nima wrote. Has anyone done a wellness check on Robbie Mills this morning? Because what I witnessed last night on the KET debate looked to me like I need to report a blank whooping in the woodshed. And then she ended with, at Lieutenant Governor Coleman is undefeated now in debates. You don't want this smoke. Back to you, Aaron.
I love Nima. So glad that she's a part of our network. And yeah, if you don't follow Nima on Twitter, you should, because we only get her like once a month or so, but you get her every day on Twitter, because I will not call it anything but Twitter. All right. So yeah, Mills is kind of an idiot, and also is somebody who just goes to bat for coal, despite the fact that more people in Kentucky work in EV battery manufacturing than in coal mining, right? But it's definitely something that he has a track record of, putting himself in the middle of things that he shouldn't be in the middle of. Climate science, absolutely one of those. A doctor's office is the other thing he should not be putting himself in the middle of, but absolutely these Republican, jerks. I'll just say jerks because it's a polite family show. They feel like they should be in the doctor's office and telling you what the doctor can tell you. And he's just another one of them. I do think your question about how he got the nod is very interesting, right? I just feel like he had to go pretty low down the list to get to Robbie Mills. If you're looking at the kind of Republican landscape in Kentucky, although let's just be honest, it's kind of a thankless job being the lieutenant governor. Right? Like, if you have any political aspirations of your own, I don't know that you're like, oh yeah, lieutenant governor. That's my stepping stone. Especially, Cameron's a young guy. If he wins, they're like, definitely there's another term, and then I guess you're like poised. I don't know.
I think perhaps maybe the difference might be compare the Bashir Coleman working together, and Coleman, I think, was secretary of one of the cabinets early on. And then think about Bevan and his running mate. I can't recall her name right now, but I think at some point Bevan fired her whole staff. And, is Cameron going to be like that? I don't know.
Yeah, that did not seem like a positive working relationship. Was it Jean? Somebody can Google it and put it in
Hampton.
the chat. It's sad that we don't remember her name, but it does also, and she got more headlines than most lieutenant governors, right? Because of that controversy. But yeah, it's an interesting question. All right, so we got another story we're going to roll into. This one is about the Kraft family riches. And where Kelly and Joe Kraft have been spending their money. This story comes to us from the Lantern, and this is it's interesting, right? So Kelly Kraft ran for governor because she had the clear expertise of being the ambassador to Canada. In absentia, it wasn't really there very much. She didn't show up to the job very often. Mostly, she got that job, and then the UN ambassador, I think, because Joe Kraft made prolific donations to key politicians, right? So, she got the nod because they donated a ton of money to Trump, right? $1 million to his inauguration fund, and that is like the biggest slush fund of all political contributions, is the inauguration fund. She gave the maximum to Trump, gave to associated Trump PACs, really had been a long time supporter, of Trump, right? And by long time, I mean, as soon as he became a viable candidate, they started throwing money at him to make sure they had access and influence. And clearly they did. She got a couple of cool jobs out of it. Joe Kraft got, his pro-coal agenda moved through the Trump administration. Not that it mattered because, it's not about politics with coal. It's really about, the economics of the fuel. So at any rate, despite all that history, if we recall, they invited him to hang out with them at the Derby. Trump came to the Derby, hung out with the Crafts for a second, and then came back to the state, I think pretty promptly, to endorse Dan Cameron. Or no, I think he didn't even show up to the state. He just did a full-throated endorsement of Dan Cameron, which I got to imagine there were some curse words said in the Kraft mansion, whichever one they were in, the Oklahoma one, the Kentucky one, wherever they were. I got to imagine when they got news of that full-throated endorsement of Dan Cameron after the millions of dollars they had put into Trump and Trump's political initiatives, they were pissed. And I think that is a safe assumption because now we're seeing the reporting of who they're supporting now. There are political contributions to be made. Joe and Kelly Kraft remain, committed to those Republican, pro-coal corporate causes. I don't think they really have much in terms of actual views, but they have given the maximum donation, the $6,600 to Mike Pence. Did not work. Mike Pence has just dropped out. They gave the maximum to Chris Christie, who I think that might be the only money he's raised. I don't know. Maybe the small dollar donations to people who really want to make sure he's on the debate stage. And then also Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and then they gave half as much to Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, who ended his campaign quite a while ago. But yeah, so whose name is not on that list is Donald Trump. I love this story. I love this story so much because it's clear that as much as they're there for the Republican politics, they definitely remember the slight and are absolutely pissed off at Trump, which I thought was fairly inartful. Not that that's shocking. And so Trump is the political sledgehammer. He doesn't really doesn't do nuance. It's I wonder, one of my biggest funders, his wife, is running for governor. Should I play this smooth? Should I be slick here? Nah, I'm just going to come right in for Dan Cameron. And then the best will be when Dan Cameron loses, that, he's just cut off his nose to spite his face, right? Dries up all sorts of money because we all know that Trump's not really a billionaire. He absolutely needs the money to do his political shenanigans. So just so dumb. So dumb. But hey, Dan Cameron gets to tout that endorsement in his political ads because he's got him. He's right there. Yeah, the former attorney general or the current attorney general for the great state of Kentucky, the guy who is our chief law enforcement officer, proudly touting the endorsement of a man who's been indicted on 95 criminal counts or something insane like that. Soon to be former Nate. Yes, that was a slip of the tongue there. 5 days, hopefully. That's not the way it works, but we'll see. At any rate, Doug, I don't know. I know you're a big mover and shaker in the political world. You make a lot of $6,000 donations to a lot of politicians. So you can provide some unique insights probably to this story, but what do you think about it?
Oh yes, those $6,600 donations, they get double when my wife joins me, so it's 13,200 or something like that. I think that the math works.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to figure. Trump is, I don't know, Trump is Trump, and anybody who gets his endorsement, they have to realize that that's just what it was at that time. One of the things that I wanted to mention when Kelly Craft conceded to Cameron, I remember her saying, wait, there's going to be more coming or something to that effect. And that hasn't happened yet. I don't really think that she is the kind of person that would be interested in being the one to replace McConnell, be a senator, because I think that takes too much work. And I know being a governor, I'm not slighting the fact that our governor, in particular Andy, has had a really tough time over the last 3.5 years. But when you're a senator, you're really, and you're shielded a lot. You get to come back home like McConnell does, talking about giving money for the Britt Spence Bridge when really he was against funding, but he's there. Andy Barr is always there when money is handed out, even though he may have voted against the bill that provided that money. So, people with money, they try to buy what they can buy. I don't know if you saw on the news, Aaron, recently, there's a senator, I think, who is proposing limitations on monetary contributions by corporations. The first politician who came out and said, oh, we can't do that?
Who said we can't limit donations to corporations?
Yeah.
That was Mitt Romney, right? He didn't, not the first. Like a lot of them believe Mitch is the guy, right? Who really who desperately hates campaign finance reform. But Romney said corporations are people, right? So
yeah. Well, I think my point is there is a senator that's talking about trying to roll that back to where corporations, are not people and can't make those kind of donations. And Mitch McConnell came out very quickly and said, "Oh no, we can't have that." So
no, and that's how Mitch built his power, right? Was being a terribly effective fundraiser, and that's what Kevin, former Speaker of the House, that's how he really gained influence. He was a really effective fundraiser and able to put the resources around to help build and maintain a very tentative, narrow majority. And that's the new guy, Mike Johnson, not a fundraiser, not so we'll see who's got the right path to power there. But it is obviously the amount of cash that it takes to run these campaigns is insane, right? I mean, the fact that it takes millions of dollars to run for Congress, who puts money in the political campaigns at that level? Oh yeah, it's a guy who owns a bunch of coal mines, right? And it has a clear agenda. It's not you and me, right? It's not just folks who care passionately about political outcomes. Like, you can't afford to just, because every year or two, there's a new batch of politicians who need your money. And, the only reason you'd be dumping that much money into our political system is if you get something out of it, right? And so, I just think, campaign finance reform is critically important. Obviously, the Supreme Court has been horrible on the issues. Earlier Supreme Courts were also horrible. So these, I can't imagine what we get out of this Supreme Court if we ever got a campaign finance reform law taken in front of them. I don't think we'd want to, right? I think we would need to see some changes in the Supreme Court. But yeah, that kind of corporations are people garbage argument. And then earlier, like that money is speech, right? You can't regulate money in political conversations because that's speech. That was an earlier finding, Buckley Vallejo. So there's a ton of bad Supreme Court precedent that does not make it easy for us to limit the amount of money in our political process, right? So, but I do think the crafts are a great example of why we should.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on. We're a little bit, somehow, just two of us, burned a lot of time. So we're going to move in to our chat with our friends from Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. If you are not familiar with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, you are probably not watching this show from Kentucky. But if you are watching this show from Kentucky and you don't know who they are, you need to check them out. They're the kind of long-term kind of progressive power building organization. Done an amazing amount of work to really engage the folks and make things better in our Commonwealth. Truly an amazing group, and really just all about organizing and engaging community members and helping do the work of fixing our state. So they are, the 800-pound gorilla in, kind of progressive community-based organizing in Kentucky for sure. We watch with awe what they're able to put together for sure. And this week we're really excited to have on with us a couple of their great members, Kenneth Williamson and Kenny Jenkins, who have been engaged in some of their direct political election work. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. How are y'all doing this evening?
I'm doing great.
All right. So, hey, maybe we'll start with you, Kenny. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you got involved with KFTC, and then we'll turn to Kenneth.
Sure. Okay. So my name, thanks, first of all, Aaron and Doug.
Doug, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for having us on. And I got involved. I'm an impacted person. I'm a person with a felony in my past, and I kind of liked the work that I saw and heard about through another good friend and colleague at KFTC, Tana Fogel. She's also a councilwoman, but anyway, I liked the work that she was doing, and she had a similar story in terms of her background. And I knew I had made a mistake, just like she had in my younger years, and I kind of wanted to beat the recidivism statistical thing that Daniel Cameron is always griping about. I knew I didn't want to be a part of that. So when I observed KFTC doing the work that they do, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And so, that's how I got involved.
That's great. So so you got your voting rights back. You kind of inspired by that work and wanted to keep doing it. That's great. Kenneth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kenneth Williamson, and I'm from Christian County, Kentucky. And just like Kenny Jenkins, my story is similar. My girlfriend, Cinnamon Watts, was doing the work, and she informed me that I had my right back to vote and pointed me in the direction of KFTC because of the work that they were doing. And that's how I got kind of hooked up with KFTC. And they gave me a chance to get free voices like mine that wasn't free at first.
That's awesome. So yeah, tell us a little about the work you guys have been doing. So I know, I got something in the mail from KFTC, the very helpful mailer that showed who the candidates were and their positions on a bunch of different issues. So that seems like really valuable. Kind of getting that information into people's mailboxes. What else are you guys working on?
Okay, would you like to start off, Kenneth?
Yeah, well, we do a lot of stuff. We are getting petitions signed, whether it be for economics, racial justice, voting rights, LGBTQ communities, and a lot more. We got a broad spectrum of things and rights that we fight for here at KFTC.
Awesome. So Kenny, how about you? What's that work look like? We're in as I said, the final it's crunch time. We've just got 5 days left between now and the election. What do you guys focused on?
Yes, exactly. So as you just mentioned, pre-voter registration deadline has came and gone October the 10th. So now our focus is more, but I'd like to add that our preliminary numbers from that, we got over 7,500 ID'd voters, people ID'd, and then we actually registered over 20,020 voters. I'm reading this wrong. Over 2,020 voters were registered, and then 195 volunteerships. So in addition to that, we also received over 1,600 supporters through our door work, our door-to-door canvassing work, and other sources that we have not yet collated. But that's one. And then, of course, the Democracy Champions. That's what Kenny and I are, what kind of drew us in. But that work is where we have went into some of 5 jails in Kentucky, advocating and registering pre-trial people that are in jail. We have we kind of worked that pilot program out this year where we were able to go into the Commonwealth's jails and register people, which was unprecedented. And I'd like to really highlight the work that we did in that respect, because that was awesome. It kind of set the stage for a lot of the people who are not going further into the system to not miss their opportunity to vote just because they're tied up in the system for that period. So that's vital work. And then, of course, we do so much, but the last few days right now, so that part is over as well. Going into doing the jail work through the Democracy Project. Now what we're doing, and our focus is, in particular, is phone banking and just getting out our voter registration guides, which will give information on the candidates' stances, give information on frequently asked questions from KFTC members and just people in general. So we have a lot we have a lot more, but I don't want to tell it all. I'm gonna let Ken share some of the work and some of the ways that he liked to spend the last 5 days.
And just to kind of piggyback off it a little bit, we've been really, really pushing early voting. We want Kentuckians to take that opportunity to get out there and do it very early, and have plans and stuff go along and just make it more. So we've been really, really pushing that over the last few days, and also been delivering a lot of voter guides to Kentuckians in low-income neighborhoods to have them familiar with the candidates and the candidate stances also. So it's been a real push for that, and we will continue to push that on up until November the 7th.
Oh, that's great. So that work to bank the votes ahead of time. Early voting happens starting, will depend on when you're listening to this. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So 3 days of kind of excuse-free. You don't have to have a reason. You just show up and vote. I know in the Lexington area, there's, I think, 4 locations, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Northside Library, the Eastside Library, the Tates Creek Library, and the Lexington Senior Center. That's in Fayette County. So there's 4 locations. Every county has different, availability or different places to go. So you need to check that out. govote.ky.gov, I believe. But maybe there's a different website that you guys would recommend folks find that information at. I don't know, Kenneth or Kenny.
That's the correct website. And just for context, folks here in Christian County, the locations will be the James Bruce Convention Center, the Senior Center, and the Walnut Street Center. Those are the 3 locations that we have here for early voting in Christian County.
Christian County. All right. And Kenny, again, remind me where you are, Kenny. What county are you at?
I'm in Lexington, the same as you, and I think that our locations. I know one of the locations will be at my church, which is Shiloh Baptist Church, and then I think another one will be at Consolidated Baptist Church, and I'm not sure about the other 2.
Gotcha. Yeah, but govote.ky.gov to find them out. And then so
I should have mentioned that.
We have a question in the comments. Nate was interested in how that works. How do you register people in jail? I know that Kentucky has got some like outdated rules about, if you've been convicted of a crime, you lose your voting rights and you have to petition to get them back, or the governor has to give them back to you. I don't know. It's a little bit confusing, but so explain that to us, could you?
So the governor had an executive order in 2019 restoring the rights to over 170,000 Kentuckians with felony in their past, and some did not make the cut. Let's say that. And so those are the folks we fight for. Now, when we talk about jail registering jail voters, they are pretrial, so they haven't quite went through the process yet. So they're still eligible to vote. We were unsuccessful in getting into the jails down here in Western Kentucky, in Christian County Jail, Hopkins County Jail. So the folks like Kenny Jenkins and then that have done the work up that way in Lexington and Fayette County and stuff like that, they are pretty much setting the precedent for what comes for me. So I'll let Kenny tell you how they navigated the course in the jail there.
Thank you, Kenneth. And with that, I'll just take it and dive right in. And first of all, that's an excellent question. I actually asked that question myself, but this is how we do it. This is how it's determined. First thing you have to, one of the first criteria is that you must meet nonviolent, not have a felony, and not have one pending. And those are, I said one thing, but that's actually 3. And then the cherry on top is if you don't get out in time for the election, then you're not eligible. Now, if you meet all 4 of those criteria, you'll be out in time, you don't have a felony, and the other ones that I mentioned. If you are eligible, then what we would do is we would work along with the staff. Generally, it's inmate services, and they would go through the list. They would compile a list of the people that were eligible in each pod, and that's how we would meet with those individuals. We would go over it and confirm that they were eligible, didn't have any pending situations in other states or any of that. And once we got through all that, then the only thing we needed to do was have them fill out the registration card. The issue that we ran into, however, and we are trying to, because this is a pilot program, and we are trying to work through the kinks. One of the kinks that we ran into was early voting, absentee voting, rather, if they're in jail and it's a requirement that it was some red tape where by them being in jail, not it, but by them being in jail, they're not allowed to do certain things. They're not allowed to check, to use a computer for one. So everything, those type of things, while they're under DOC, Department of Corrections care, they have to have a family member or a trusted friend bring those to them. And sometimes it's a lot. It's a lot of hard work. And then, of course, they have to be out in time. Excuse me, I'm getting short of breath. They have to be out in time for the actual election. And so it's real tedious and time consuming. And if they don't have access to the internet, it could be troublesome. So that's one kink that we're trying to see if we can get some type of computer or device inside of the jail that would remain in the inmate service offices or something that they could just check once they were, if they're eligible or their status prior to getting out. And then the other obstacle was pretty much another situation that I feel like could be, if with a little thought, can be solved. And it is, like I was saying, the absentee ballot. The absentee ballot is most certainly the biggest and most at this. It's the stamps, because they don't want to supply the stamps. And that was another argument. I remember, as I mentioned, real quick, I'm a person, an impacted person. So I remember years ago when I was in jail, if you were indigent, they would provide stamps, an envelope, and so forth. Well, when we were doing the Project Democracy work, it was not, to my understanding, they no longer do that. So we are trying to, and it's against the law for us to do it as a nonprofit, KFTC. So we're trying to work that kink out as to how they can get postage. So we really only faced two obstacles, and that was like just based on policy and procedure of the jail. So yeah, it's very meaningful work.
That's really, that is important. I think, is it Vermont maybe maybe where they actually do let folks who are in jail vote, and they will bring, you can vote from jail. I think most of our states are, I'm sorry, Kenneth, you're saying?
I want to say Vermont and Maine, maybe.
And Maine. Not the South, not Kentucky, which again, some of the most restrictive rules in the country. You don't automatically get it back, right? So I think there's a lot to do there.
I think we really do appreciate to have our rights back to vote. You know what I mean? Especially for me, when I got the right back to vote in 2020, that was the first time I ever voted in my life. Okay. And I was born in 1977. So I participated in the last 3 elections, and I just feel so great about that. And now it's like, it's on me to help other folks that are wearing my shoes get their right back to vote. You know what I mean? I really take that fight very, very seriously.
It's purposeful. It's very purposeful. It gives us, like Kenny, I'm going to piggyback off of what he said. It does give you purpose, and it gives you, it's just character building, because finally you're doing something I feel that is, like I mentioned all the time, purposeful, and we're giving back, and we're trying to be a light and show the people who are disenfranchised and have a similar story as us that you don't have to, no matter how many doors shut, as long as somebody give you opportunity, like Kenneth said, that KFTC did with us and put us to work and asked us to be representatives of the change that we want to see. I mean, that's what we try and do. That's where we get our energy.
Nice. It's wonderful. It's great to see. I'm glad you guys are engaged with that fight. You found something you're passionate about. You got a deep personal connection to. Do you have any thoughts about kind of what else KFTC will be doing in the future? I mean, 2024 and beyond. What are y'all up to?
Well, recently we had over 100 members come together a while back and kind of charted out what the organization would be looking like in the next 10 years. And they wrote this audacious goal. And I'll read it to you. It's guided by Black and Indigenous people of color and impacted communities. We will recruit, equip, and activate a network of 100,000 members and partners across 120 counties to dismantle and all systems of oppression to develop a robust democracy and transform the future of Kentucky. And like bring people to the General Assembly to lobby on issues we care about, weighing in on big elections next year, going deep on grassroots organizing, build more leadership development. That's the direction we're headed in.
More volunteers, everything.
Awesome. That's great. That's when it's, we don't like the way things are now. So what is it going to take? It's going to take more, right? Where you have to do more than what's happening now if we're going to make that change and get a Commonwealth that, really reflects the values, whether it's making sure everyone has access to the ballot, whether it's making sure everyone has access to the kind of healthcare they need, whether folks have access to support if they need it. Absolutely great stuff. And so glad that, you guys are involved with KFTC, and thank you for sharing your stories and your passion and your work with us.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to, before I leave, I wanted to add that Kentucky, we can take pride as being the first state to implement a program like this. So it's pretty cool.
Kenny, I concur. Absolutely pretty cool. So that is our quick check-in with the folks from KFTC, and really glad to have Kenneth Williamson and Kenny Jenkins representing the important work of really like hundreds of volunteers and great folks with KFTC. So thank you both so much.
Hey, thank you guys. Nice show.
So please go to their website. They do a ton of stuff. And their voting work, I think, is clearly very important and very impressive. You probably got one of their mailers, the very great, laying out the candidate surveys for your area, candidate surveys for the statewide offices, the candidates that are willing to fill them out. So really good stuff there, very insightful, and happy to be collaborating and partnering with them for the Kentucky Future Project. So, Doug, any thoughts? I'm sorry. Any voting information you want to share with us?
Sure. A couple of things first. I know that Kenny and Kenneth have left, but they're doing amazing work, and I really appreciate it. And when I was canvassing recently, I ran into a young man who has lost his voting rights, and he's not eligible to get those back just yet, but I hope to contact him in January when he may be eligible, and maybe I can connect him with Kenny and Kenneth, and they can help him get through that. The voting things, I just happened to run across a website today, the mail-in applications. There were over 54,000 mail-in voting applications that had been sent out, and 32,300 of those were to registered Democrats, and 18,600 were registered Republicans. So there were more Democrats who requested that type of balloting, and most of those have been returned.
But remember, Kentucky Democrats don't necessarily look like Democrats everywhere else. It's a good point though. That's great that people are taking advantage of it and are going to vote at their leisure, right? And not have to go hit the time, because we've got some of the worst hours of voting in the country, right? 6 a.m. I mean, I wouldn't encourage them starting earlier. That seems challenging, but 6 p.m. is such an early time to close the polls. So having that kind of mail-in option is absolutely a great way to avoid any challenges there.
I do also have some figures on um, Robbie Mills district
Oh, yeah.
that I thought were interesting. The current figures, there's about 45, almost 46,000 Democrats registered and 34,000 Republicans. And of that, 79,000 voters are actually 100 or 80,000 voters, approximately 35,000 voted. So depending on the turnout, it's hard to tell, but that may be the primary reason that Mills was chosen, other than the 4 or 5 before him turned it down.
We think. We don't know for sure.
We think, yeah, we have no proof.
Conjecture corner over here. All right, so we are going to move on. We do have Adrielle Camuel joining us. Adrielle, who's been on the show before, she is continuing her hard work to win the 93rd State House District, which of course is tragically vacant. Our friend Lamine Swan tragically passed away months ago. But Adrielle has been working hard to get the word out in that district about her candidacy, one of the few state house races that you can vote on in November. Next week, 5 days away. So yeah, I just wanted to check in with her. So Adrielle, thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
Hi, thank you all for having me on. And I'm so sorry that I was late. I'm so sorry.
I also feel like I should just go ahead and say it right now. There might be people who are like, I watched last week. I thought you were going to be on. And where was she? It was not Adrielle's fault. Aaron was like off working and had thought maybe he'd done what he needed to do for the thing to happen. And he did not. I'm saying it in the third person, so maybe you won't know that it was me.
Nobody knows. Nobody
totally
knows.
dropped the ball and did not give Adrielle the link. And Adrielle texted me. I was in the middle of a bunch of stuff and didn't see it for hours later. I was like, oh, that's the problem.
That was an oopsie.
So where are you, Adrielle? What's going on?
Well, I am standing outside West 6th right now because the amazing, incredible Silas, sorry, I was moving a notification off my screen. The amazing Silas House is in here speaking right now about, oh my gosh, he's amazing and I love him. I'm always enamored when I see him, but really kind of kicking things off and talking about the importance of voting. And, Kentucky, literally, he said it so well early on, we are absolutely worth fighting for. We can love Kentucky. We can love Kentuckians, lifelong Kentuckian here, and we can be frustrated by us, but we are worth fighting for. So democracy will win here.
That's awesome.
I love West 6th. Wall in the cold.
I love West 6th and I love Silas House. So I wish I could be there, but I had a show to put together. So I do tell us a little bit about how the final push is looking. What are people saying to you out on the streets? I know you're knocking on a ton of doors. What's the response been?
We are knocking a ton of doors. This past weekend, we surpassed 12,000 doors knocked. We should have 14,000 doors knocked by Friday. And then we're actually going to fold into the governor's GOTV. So I don't know exactly what the numbers will look like then for the 93rd. But I have to this team is incredible. Their dedication and willingness to get out, have the conversations, meet people literally where they're at. But at the doors, the absolute number one topic, and I experienced this tonight, knocking in Heartland. For anybody who doesn't know, it's a pretty red precinct in the 93rd. But time and again, it was Republican women asking what my number one priority was and where do I stand on women's reproductive rights. The ability to access the full spectrum of reproductive rights is number one in my district. It is what people care about the most. Second most important thing they want to talk about is making sure that we fully fund public education. They understand the value of it and that it's under attack. But by and large tonight, most of the doors I ended up knocking before I came here were Republicans, men and women. And I walked away from more doors with them telling me they were voting for me, as well as the whole Democratic ticket, than not. So it is making sure that women have a choice, but also that we get full medical care, health care is a huge, they want to talk about it. So, but it's going exceptionally well. Last weekend, actually, I've gotten several contributions with letters from people who are either registered Republicans or registered independents saying, that they actually, don't love leadership on either side. But I've had 2 letters where they said that I give them hope. And so what I see that as is they understand the gravity of what some of the legislation, the impact it's had on us. And I saw some statistics the other day, and it made the paper, and I'm so sorry because I'm standing outside on the quietest part of the street.
Okay.
But Kentucky has the second highest maternal mortality rate in the nation. We have 72 counties that don't have an OBGYN, and that is scaring people. Hey, you too. Take care. And so it's people are aware of the consequences of legislation happening in church, and they are looking for change, and they're looking for a solution. And I hope that I can be one of those voices. Sorry, that was a big long rant, but next question. Sorry.
Doug, do you have a question for Adrielle?
No, I don't really have a question. I just admire that you were willing to step up and knocking on all those doors. Progress Kentucky is in Lexington, also knocking on doors and texting and calling people. And we support you, and we're
thank you.
proud of you, and we're looking forward to you being in the legislature.
Thank you. I hope I win on November 7th. I'm giving it my all. I can tell you my team is giving it their all. Win or lose, we have literally put it all on the table. I wish everyone could see, like, the women, they're women and men, but it's mostly women on this team, like what they are doing and how dedicated they are. Because I work full time. And so when I'm at work, they are out there just like pounding the pavement, knocking the doors. It's amazing. And it's humbling. It's so humbling.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Doug is right. We have been out knocking on doors in the 93rd, and we have made sure everyone knows that they have a special election. Well, first we let them know there's an election, and then we let them know there's a special election, and and that they've got the unique opportunity to vote for their state house rep, and underscore that name that's right there on our flyer as well. So, and yeah, it's a good one. Even if people don't know how to pronounce it, it's, they just need to recognize it on the ballot. And
yes, correct. No, thank you all for getting out and knocking doors. Like, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and what it means to me, because it's not easy. But then at the end of the day, what I have found is it becomes fun, especially when people start to recognize you at the door, or they recognize the face on the flyer, or, when they say, oh my gosh, like I've looked you up. There's a lot of support out there. I will say, like, I did not think that I would ever meet the initial fundraising goal, which was $40,000, and we surpassed that. Right now we're a lot above it. So I feel like there's still a lot of momentum in this race, and there's a lot of support coming from a lot of places. So it's incredible.
Well, that's wonderful. We'll keep it up. And you probably want to get in and hear Silas House wrapping up, but thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for throwing your hat in the ring and for fighting hard for a more engaged democracy. And let's send you to Frankfurt to work with Andy, not against Andy, like the dumb, stupid super majority they've got back there right now.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me come on. And I'm sorry that I was a little bit late. I just got caught up in the moment of the incredible Silas House.
No, we're no Silas House. We're just going to put it right there. We're okay with that.
But no, seriously, thank you. And thank you. I mean, I can't say thank you. I feel like I say it all the time, and it just never does it justice. But thank you for helping me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's going to take all of us doing all we can, right? And, not all of us have the time and energy and inclination to run for office, but we can all do something to support those who do. So, Adrielle, thanks again.
Thank you. I'll see you all soon.
All right. So that is, mostly our show. We've done a few things tonight. We've had an amazing conversation with folks who are fighting for voting rights with KFTC, Kenny and Kenneth from all across the state, which was fantastic to hear. We don't hear enough from other sides of the state in this show. We are a little bit Central Kentucky centric. And then, of course, Adrielle Camuel there in the 93rd district. And then, we got a quick call to action that I guess I'll do that. And then Doug, you can close this out. Don't sit on the sidelines, people. We have got 5 days to finish the deal here. And I think there's a lot of people who feel like, things are going in the right direction for Andy. But, I just was watching a little bit of news, the local news, because my daughter thought that maybe her school was going to be on the local news. So I watched the local news, and it was attack ad after attack ad after attack ad, or the Republican down ballot folks have enough money. They're on TV. Folks who are running for auditor, folks who are running for treasurer, folks who are running for ag commissioner, attorney general, they've all got money to be on TV, urging folks to support the conservative so they can fight Joe Biden or whatever. So it is definitely going to take a lot of work to win the folks that we think are the best candidates for those show. So you can look back and see, but we've had Buddy Wheatley for Secretary of State. We've had Colonel Pam Stevenson for Attorney General. We've had her on a number of times. She comes on every time because she thinks it's her show because it's Kernels of Truth, and she's in fact a colonel. But we've also had Sierra on the show, I think twice. We've had Sierra on the show twice. We have Kim on the show twice. Kim Reeder running for auditor. Really a fantastic slate that are doing this all for the right reasons, but they need your support, right? So here's what you can do. You can join up. You can support our efforts. You can, in fact, just click on the link and give us a few hours. Doug and I are going to be canvassing on Saturday. Join us. Like Adrielle said, Adrielle's not crazy. She's right. It's fun. It gets to the point where it's actually quite fun to knock on doors and talk to strangers. I know that sounds weird, but that's only because you haven't done it yet. And Nate's coming out Saturday. It is going to be a big old party. And we're going to talk about democracy at the grassroots level. So I think you should join us. Just click that link right there, sign up so we can know you're coming. And we'll even buy you a free Starbucks beverage of your choice. I mean, it's not that we're like big Starbucks fans. They seem to be kind of everywhere. So wherever we're canvassing, there is one pretty close by. But yeah, so at any rate, I've talked a lot. Let's get out of here and get on the phones, get on the doors, do everything you can. Look, if you don't want to talk to strangers because strangers are scary, you can share a video. That's the easiest thing you can do is share a video. We have a perfect video. We have the antidote to all the attack ads, all the negativity. We have got it's Andy for Kentucky, which Nate Orshan has written. He has performed. He has created the video. I know we've talked about it a few times, but it's been a minute since we've talked about it on this show. So you gotta share the video, and it's again that positive, uplifting message and how important it is that we send or keep Andy Beshear in Frankfort representing our Commonwealth. So I'll find that and I'll put a link in the chat. I mean, Doug, you like that song, right?
Oh, I love that song. It gets stuck in your head, but I love it.
Absolutely. It's it's an earworm, folks. So I don't think Nate can play. This is a curveball. I did not give him the heads up that we should play the song, but I'll just put the link so you can find it yourself and click on it and play it. So, Doug, you want to close this out?
Sure. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, referred to as CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Make sure to join us next week, November the 8th. We will be covering the results of the governor's and the other down ballot races. Production of episode 137 was by our very own Nate Orshan. And thank you, Nate, for the new song and the theme songs. You can find more information and music at Nate Songs. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcast, and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. You can go with a 4-star, but nothing less than a 4-star. Logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. Hope to see you next week.